I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this infamous scene from the corny sci-fi flick Starship Troopers. It is, of course, the co-ed shower scene. Apparently, in the future, militaries being co-ed have gone full hoo-ah and decided that it's much easier to maintain one shower system than two. But in this scene, there's actually a couple of different psychological operations going on that I would like to cover with you. And they're actually relevant to something we have talked about here on the channel for probably almost 2 years now. If this is okay for the military, and this goes on in the military now, why would it not be okay for prison? You see, there's a story out about Elizabeth Warren, and she wants to make transgender women be housed in women's correctional facilities. According to the people that disagree with me on this idea of prisoners being dangerous and shit hits the fan, that shouldn't be a problem. Why? Well, according to you, one of the biggest pushbacks I get is that the vast majority of the people in prison are there for nonviolent offenses and are innocent and wouldn't hurt a soul. Okay, so then we should make 70% of the prisons co-ed with one giant shower room for everybody. Because nobody's going to hurt anybody else, right? You see, and there's the second psychological operation going on here is this. And I'm talking primarily to people my age. I'm going to try to be somewhat discreet about how I describe this. Once you get into a long-term relationship with somebody, you're living with them, you're married to them, and you are sharing facilities, it becomes somewhat less than romantic or something less than I guess, alluring or titillating like you would see in a video like this. See, to young people that have never been in that experience where they've had to share a bathroom with somebody full time, they think, ooh, wow, that would be great. That would be so cool. Oh my gosh, I can't, no. No, especially, and speaking from a guy's perspective, to the guys out there that have lived with women, whether it be, daughters or whether, your better half, it's something less than what you see in the shampoo commercials. It's not nearly as exciting as, and ladies, I know guys are not nearly as chivalrous when it comes to that kind of thing as you would think. So the idea is this, that the idea that these prisoners would be harmless is ridiculous. And we see this in how we treat the military co-ed situation versus a prison co-ed situation. There are articles going back all the way to 83 and 87. This is 83 from the UPI. Co-ed prisons tame inmate behavior. Now, these are old articles. This one, let's see, June 29, 1983, I found this one. The overriding view held by people outside prison walls is that people inside them should pay for their offenses without members of the opposite sex around to ease the pain of punishment. But it's actually counterintuitive. When they tried this, and they did, in different prisons, it actually calmed inmate behavior. They're just as quick to point out redeeming qualities, including a noticeable reduction in inmate violence, improved hygiene and self-care, and a greater willingness among inmates to be responsible for their actions. Federal prisons, Pleasanton, California, Lexington, Kentucky, Fort Worth, Texas, and a federal youth center in Morgantown, West Virginia, all co-ed. And I'm very sure now that that has all been done away with. And like I said, this was a long time ago. It's a more, quote, it's a more normal environment, and one thing you will find is that both male and female, particularly male, will behave in a constructive manner. It was very, it actually panned itself out. That it actually worked out. Co-ed prisons recommended to reduce problems behind bars. UPI, February 3, 1987. We have less destruction and less disturbances. And this was Oklahoma City. So it would be very strange to see yourself, those of you who disagree with me, finding yourself coming down on the side of Elizabeth Warren. Now, the conservatives went nuts when she said this, that it was a terrible idea, that you should never put transgender women, men, however you say that. I still don't know the right way to say it. The men who think they are women, whatever, into women's prisons. But what did it show back in the 80s? It showed that it actually reduced violence in men's prisons, among men in the prisons that were co-ed. So it puts you in a weird place, because if you stand by this ridiculous notion that if in a shit hits the fan situation that these prisoners, when they break out and they get out, that they are really just innocent people that were in a bad situation and that there wouldn't be a threat, then there should be absolutely no problem with Elizabeth Warren's plan, should there? And the UPI backs that up. But if you're logical, like a normal conservative person would be, you would say, yeah, you know what? 2.3 million prisoners on the run, or some fraction thereof, with violent past, with an axe to grind, coming from an incredibly violent background, without any security forces to speak of, to call on for backup, the people out in the middle are going to be in a shitstorm. They're going to be in a world of hurt. So it's a weird place mentally to find yourself. Would you be for this, or would you be against it? I think it would be something where, well, what if it was your daughter that had done something to earn a year or two in prison? Would you want her getting locked up with a bunch of male convicts? Probably not. But are you of the opinion that just 70% of the people out there in prison are just there for nonviolent offenses and wouldn't hurt a soul? Well, that means 70% of the time she should be fine, right? So what's the answer? You see, they buried those stories from the 80s because they didn't want it taking root. And the real nasty, dirty part of that story is this. The prison system is there to make money. If it doesn't make money, if it doesn't corporatize and make profit, it's no good. So they have to create this revolving door of recidivism to keep the money flowing in. So when they found a solution that caused a giant drop in recidivism, that caused prisons to act like more normal society and renormalized people, they got rid of it. And those UPI articles from 83 and 87 prove it, and I'll give you the links to those, and you can read them for yourself. Because in one of the articles, and I didn't scroll all the way down to it, the guy in charge of the prison said, when you take something away from somebody, they become more fixated on it. And they become more hyper-focused on it. And that's why we see what we see in the prisons today. The hyper-sexualization of everything. When they actually put the people in the situation, it actually calmed everything down. So it's kind of a weird dysphoria. You wouldn't naturally go there. But when you really think about it critically, you can even see it in men. When men get married and they call it, quote unquote, settling down, they become less like their single counterparts. And a little bit more malleable, a little bit more reasonable, making decisions in a little bit more responsible and better way. And even actuarial tables from insurance companies show this, that it has less to do about age, meaning irresponsible behavior with cars or whatever they're trying to insure, has less to do with age and more to do with being married and being in an environment like that. So I just wanted to cover those two things together, that there's a group of people out there who disagree with me, who, because they disagree with me, would find themselves in the same camp as Elizabeth Warren on this issue. And I think that would nauseate most of them, because that's the argument she's making. That it won't cause any increase in violence, it won't cause any increase in problems. And like I said, 2 articles from the UPI 4 years apart confirm this. I was young, but I do remember this. So I guess I will just leave it there. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.